Alright, let's see if I can get this now. Jesus Christ, man. Almighty. You're gonna give me a hemorrhoid. Nope. What's this one? And there we go. Okay. Okay. So, I was explaining in the other video copyright and why that's not copyright. Alright, so here's another thing that I'm going to explain because apparently someone doesn't study law very good. Okay, so if this is a direct copy of that, then explain why the ear is missing part of the ear. Well, if it's a direct copy and there's differences in the ear, then you can't state it's a direct copy. That means I'm literally freehanding something that was already drawn and you couldn't copyright it. So there goes that out the window almost immediately. Your story wouldn't line up if you did try to copyright something like that. You would basically lose almost immediately. So I'm not going to argue with someone sitting there telling me if that ever came to that case scenario because you would lose. There ain't no doubt about it. You're basically saying that you own the rights to Pikachu in the first place, and that's not even probably true at all either. The next thing would be, even if you did, you're saying I'm stealing it, and it's like, I'm not stealing the art. The art was online in the first place, and not only that, but like, I don't get it. It's like I'm not making a caricature of the item. I'm not making fun of it. I used to love Pikachu. So technically you would be basically mocking a guy who legitimately liked that. And not only that, but it's just something that you couldn't do in the first place. Even though it's the cover Pokemon for Pokemon or whatever. It's been a long time since I even watched Pokemon, but so, yeah, I mean, I don't know, I was a little kid when I watched that, but I still love the idea of, like, how my dog legitimately looked like Pikachu and stuff, so it really upset me when I lost my dog, and this is one of the few things that I have that can remind me of the dog. And he did sort of have the energy of a Pikachu. He didn't really treat me like he hated me though. He always loved me. And in the videos of, on like Pokemon or whatever, Ash, when he got Pikachu, Pikachu hated him. He didn't want nothing to do with him. Well, there's always a joke about Pokemon that your trainer, like if you don't have enough badges and stuff, that you couldn't get a Pokemon to a certain level. I think that might be the joke that they were cracking there when I was growing up. Because I noticed that even when I was growing up, I was like, what, was Ash such a crappy trainer that, he was so terrible at training when he got Pikachu at level 5 that the Pikachu didn't even want nothing to do with him. He was just like, nope, I am good. I noticed it when I was younger. Now, a lot of people probably won't be able to notice that joke because if you don't know what that joke means, well, what I'm stating is if you had a badge, your Pikachu would not obey you. After you get to a certain point, it would not obey you. Ain't that funny? If you didn't have enough badges, your Pikachu would not obey you. Well, yeah, I think that's the joke that they were cracking. Either way, the like, you wouldn't have been, like, after a certain point, if you get to, like, I think it's like level 20 for the first one, or level 10, I don't know, it's been so long. You get past level 10, and your Pikachu's like, nope, not gonna listen to you. So, yeah, that's the reason why I used to crack up about it. But I didn't realize that until I got a little bit older. But even my younger self started to realize that. Like, man, Ash must have been terrible at training Pokemon. But, like, even when I was younger, I was terrible at training Pokemon. In fact, you want to know how stupid I was when it came to Pokemon video games? Okay, here's the first thing I did when I got Pokemon Ruby. That would have been my second video game. My second video game, what I did was I took and I decided that my combustion, or whatever it was, my combustion, when I got him, I decided that I was going to beat the game only with him and never use another single Pokemon. Well, that's terrible training advice. You should be using other Pokemon. So by the time I got to the end of the freaking game, my Pokemon was level 100. In fact, it was level 100 before I even remotely got to the end of the game. I killed almost everything in sight. I didn't hardly catch any other Pokemon. I had one Pokemon for flying, and that was basically it. And one Pokemon, I think it was just for flying and cut, and then there was a few moves that I taught other Pokemon. Just like when I got Fire Red, I did the same thing to my Charizard. I did that all the way through. Just used my Charizard and Charizard only. In fact, that was actually, I think, the worst choice for the beginning. The best choice was Squirtle, and then the worst choice was Charizard. The reason why the worst choice was Charizard is because he doesn't get really, really good until the end of the game. So he's really good early on too, but you got to get him evolved really early on. So you got to use him a lot. And with Squirtle, you don't have to use him as much. You can catch other Pokemon. And the whole idea is to build a team around Squirtle. Charizard, it's like you're pretty much like hogging. It's like having you make him the star of the show. All right, that's what you would be doing with a Charizard. He has to be the star of the show, and they actually do crack jokes in Pokemon about that too. I remember when I was a kid, I watched it all the time. I think it was the Pokemon movie where Charizard doesn't obey. One of them where he doesn't. It may have been the series. I don't know. I used to watch it when I was a kid. The series too. He doesn't obey that much. So, and I had to rewatch it when I got older because I didn't really understand it too much. So he doesn't obey, and the reason why is because he has to be the star of the show. In order to win the freaking every single beginning badge stuff, you would basically need to make your Charizard really, really, really overpowered. You don't need to be that overpowered to the point where he's a Charizard or a Charmander. You would have to have him completely maxed out for the early on gems. The reason why is because when you get to the second gem, which would have been Misty, it's the funniest part. You get to the Misty part. If you do not have a Charizard before you reach Misty, you won't be able to do Wing Attack. Wing Attack and Slash. Yeah, I got that good a memory on the video game. I didn't really care too much about the newer ones. After I got to the newer ones, I was like, you know what, I'm done. All the ones after Pearl, I think I quit playing. I like Gen 3 a little bit, but it wasn't the same. After it got to a certain point, it stopped being the same. In fact, Gen 3 didn't feel right when you look at all the older ones. I liked it, don't get me wrong. In fact, I think it could be a really good MMO. I really do. So, yeah, I'm just telling you my Pokemon experiences while I draw this because a lot of my Pokemon experiences I learned through lessons on my own when it came to playing that game. And I never restarted after I beat the game because I was legitimately one of those old school people. Once you beat a game, you go and if the game was like an RPG style type game, you go and you explore the game after that and you see what all you missed or what all there is to learn about the game. So that was the way I was when I was younger. Is like, okay, now that I beat it, I want to see what all I missed. So I went back and I would go catch the Pokemon that I missed and see what they did and stuff like that. I don't know why I was like that. I think what it was is like my brain was like, you know, it was like the mystery of what was all in this game type thing. I mean, like I did try to purposely find bugs too occasionally, but I didn't like doing that because it ruined the game. But sometimes I find them by accident. I don't think it was purposely. It was mainly by accident. And then I'd purposely do it. And let me tell you, I'd done a lot of bugs on purpose when I was way younger. I was a little bit more malicious when it came to video games. Way, way younger. And I'll explain that because, like, when you were younger, like, you when you figure something out, you would abuse it. If you found out like how to get something for free, you would abuse it basically. So if you were getting money for free, like typically that's how a kid would behave. They would be like, "Oh, I found this out, so I'm gonna abuse this way of making money on this video game." No, I never really did that very much when I got older. I started to realize that cheating is just completely pointless, and I never did that on any very popular games, but I really, really enjoyed like finding stuff out about video games, and then if I did find something out about a video game, I would try to make it known that this is what's wrong with it, because honestly, like I wasn't there to ruin the game per se, but I was there to like try to help the developer. But when I was younger, you didn't really have a contact method of getting hold of developers and stuff like that. And the reason why I'm stating that is because, well, how the heck is a 10-year-old supposed to know what a developer even is? I didn't even know what the heck a developer, like, it may have said it in the video game, but I didn't know what the heck it even meant or any of that stuff. I don't think any little 10-year-old would know what a developer is. Unless they looked it up. They'd have to be a really smart 10-year-old. Even then. Okay. And I was a smart 10-year-old. I mean, I wasn't dumb. I was really smart for my age. It's just like, this was the day and age where computers were still, they were still in their infancy, basically. They were popular, of course, but they were basically in their infancy. If you look at when I grew up compared to now, like, the word Google when I grew up wasn't even remotely popular. When I grew up, the word Google never even existed. I mean, it did. You want to know what a Google was? It was a Googleplex. So when you told someone about a Google, they would be like, what the are you talking about? Are you talking about the number infinity? Well, that's what it means. Google means infinity. And believe it or not, that's why the search engine is named what it's named. It's because it's named after the word infinite. And I knew that for quite some time. In fact, I knew that ever since it came out because people would always talk about Googleplexes when I was a kid. because you need to define a number that's infinite, right? You can't define something unless, and that was always a really good question that we'd always ask the teacher, and so some kids actually did look it up. This is before the age of Google, by the way. So we were probably 6, 7 years old looking up things like, what does the number infinite mean? Googleplex. Or a number that goes beyond okay, what is a number? I think they always ask questions like, what's the highest number? And they would give you vague terms like there is no highest number, their numbers go on for an infinity. Well, what's a way of defining infinity or something like that? So that's the way we looked things up when we were younger. And it sounds creepy as hell, like coming to think of it. Like I'm looking back at my past and it's like Google never even existed. And then like we were looking up terms when we were in school about Google and now it exists. What's a good way of defining infinity? And Google was one of them. Ain't that freaking crazy? Because if you don't believe me, that's actually what actually legitimately freaking happened. And it's creepy as heck to think about. Because someone legitimately copyrighted a number. Because that's what you would use to describe. I think there's actually a better term for it. I watched a video by Vsauce. I forget what the video was, but there's other names like Omega. There's numbers that aren't defined by normal men that go past the number infinity. Believe it or not, there's numbers that go past that. I forget what they're called though. It's been a long time since I looked that up. I'd have to look it up again. But yeah, there's numbers that go past infinity. So even as a kid, I didn't even realize that because we'd always argue after that. Like when we were younger, we would like say stuff like, "Oh, you can't go past infinity," because now, that's an end of the numbers. Well, there actually was no end to the numbers. But yeah, crazy. Because that's the way kids used to argue. Man, this is so creepy to look at. Like some freaking dull eyes. That that have no life to it. There is the remnants of a dead Pikachu. This is what I would imagine if your Pikachu would faint. That's terrible, man. What am I thinking of? It's a dead Pikachu. It's a fainted. I always said, like, when I was younger, when my Pokemon would faint and I caught another Pokemon, I always freaked out when I first started playing. Like, until I figured out what a freaking Poke Center was. I would freak out. I was really young. I was like, no, it died. And I was like, oh, great. Like, how the heck what do I do now? I would have like multiple Pokemon. I was like, dude, you can't freaking do anything at this point. Now my strongest Pokemon is dead. So, oh shoot, this sounds dumb. Well, that's the way I was. I was dumb, naive, and dumb. My Pokemon died in battle, and I didn't know what to do. So I kept playing until I figured out that you could take it to a Pokemon Center. I actually had to like walk around for like a whole 15-20 minutes before I figured out that you could literally take that thing to a Pokemon Center. And let me tell you, man, like I'm not even in frame right now, and it's really starting to scare me because that might have been the whole video. And this wasn't a very long video. In fact, literally there wasn't very much to this picture at all. Just mainly tracing. Now I want to go over this and make it lighter. Okay, there's the bottom part of his legs, the shading for it. Sort of give it some depth field to his where he's standing. Let's see here. Okay. So now I'm going back over it with a light trace, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rub my fingers over it like I did with my neighbor's art, which she says she likes it a lot, so I'm glad that she liked that. And sort of give it more of a lighter tone, but also giving it that darker tone, or more spread out tone, my bad, not darker tone. So, now, it looks a little bit better. I think I messed up a little bit on the outline, but that's cool. This will work. And then we want to do something like this. And no, I'm not trying to give an artist bad advice. The best way to get really, really good at an art is, like I said, you need practice first. You're never gonna start out pro. You're never gonna start out like a pro. Whoever tells you that you're gonna start out like a pro is a delusional idiot. Do not listen to that advice. Like, you're never gonna start out like, oh, okay, you instantly draw like me or something with both hands. That's not how artists start out. I mean, like, okay, if you think you're gonna start out like that, well, go ahead. Go ahead and try it. You're gonna realize how quickly you just killed your ego starting out like that and thinking that you're gonna be as good as everybody else or someone else that you're watching. That's not how it works typically. So, if you think I'm good at something, well, okay, join the club because a lot of people are going to think the same thing. You know, like, but like, if you want to get to that point, what you got to do is you're going to have to put in thousands of hours. That's the first thing. Second thing is you're not going to be getting the same result every single time. You could do this picture 1,000 different times, all right? You can take this picture, draw it 1,000 different times. It's always going to turn out differently every single freaking time. The reason why I'm stating